Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me just fine. I hope everything's going really well today. How are you all? Happy Friday. It is Friday, isn't it? Gosh, I hope so. Because sometimes I lose track of what day it is. So I believe it's Friday and I'm going to keep believing it even if it's not. So happy Friday, everybody. Weekend is coming straight at us. Welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time visiting, well, hello there. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you spending your valuable time at my tiny little corner of the internet. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing really well. If you're having a bad day, I am really, really sorry. Let's hang out. Let's spend some time together. And I wanted to give you my opinion on something that's been bothering me for a lot of years now, and I'm still yet to understand it. And I'm really interested in what you guys think about it. First, let's get to chat. Keely, Ladies Auxiliary, first cab off the rank. I'm so impressed. I'm always grateful when Keely can make it here in between her rescuing flying foxes and saving them from, I read in the chat that one of them was wrecking a room or something. So I'm always very glad when you can make it here, Keely. Daz, good morning. Rob Kent, as always, keeper of hounds. Michael Stott, lovely to see you. Stephen Webb, hello. Hardly anyone cracks me up more than Stephen Webb in the comments. It was nice to see Daz and Stephen in the Night Watchers Paranormal live stream yesterday. That was actually a lot of fun. I got a really weird feeling about that site that they're visiting. I don't know why. I don't often get spooky feelings, but what a beautiful place. I really want to go there. Good morning, Kaz. He's back. He's remembered he's a YouTuber. G'day, Kane. We missed you. We missed you so much, Kaz. We nearly got unruly. That's how much we missed you. Okay, today's subject is actually a pretty heavy one, but I think it's something we should probably be talking about, because regardless of what you feel about individual particular trials or experiments that are done, how do you feel about the general subject of military personnel from any Commonwealth country really being used to test drugs or to be studied psychologically, especially in light of what we've seen recently come out of doing this? Should military personnel be used in human experimentation? If you're like me, you might have watched way too many videos from the dark corners of YouTube and forums you probably shouldn't be on about Russian sleep experiments and the like, but you might be equally horrified to learn the truth of how military personnel have been tested on even today. There's folks in the chat today who actually have been part of these trials. And it's something that we will get Disco Stew. I was talking to him this morning. We will get Disco Stew back to talk about this one day. But he's very, very busy. You might even be hearing him or seeing him on SBS or ABC lately. He's been giving interviews left, right and centre. But he promises to come back to our side of the tracks sometime very soon. But this isn't just like CIA experiments from the 60s. This is something that is most probably happening right now and even here in Australia. And I actually have some issues with it. Good morning, Nicole L. Yeah, Keely Boyd, it's worth being concerned about. Don't be worried about your lad so much, but it's as a citizen, we should be concerned about this. Human research is something we must have, in my opinion, and no one here is arguing that we shouldn't be conducting it under the guidelines that are set up mainly thanks to the Nuremberg trials and the Nuremberg Code that came after it, which was about informed consent. Before that, we didn't really have informed consent and things like that. However, is it ethical to ever use our military personnel, especially those on the front lines, as test subjects for pharmaceuticals or psychological studies? there are other options. And in my opinion, our servicemen and women are offering their lives in the line of duty when they sign on the dotted line. However, does that mean that those in charge of the ADF should use their precious lives flippantly, or for any other purpose than its stated role, which I went and looked up, and the stated role of the ADF is, and it says, our primary role is to defend Australia and its national interests, promote security and stability in the world, and support the Australian community as directed by the government. I don't really see room for human trials or human research in that mission statement as far as I'm concerned. Good morning, Lambo. I have some issues with our ADF being used as research subjects, and I'll go through a few of my concerns. My number one... that's right, Kaz. Look, I remember when I first found out that John Paul had been tested on, he had told me that he'd taken some experimental drugs, but even he wasn't aware that he'd been part of this big, massive drug trial that had been happening. It was just made to sound very normal to him, like it was just a one-off, oh, you've got malaria here, take this drug. And it did cure him. Let's make no mistake. He didn't suffer, as far as we know, any negative side effects about it. But the principle of, this is my number one concern, is informed consent. We hear lots about the words consent nowadays, which is a good thing, mostly. However, when it comes to the ADF leadership, I would suggest that they need some workplace education to fix their toxic culture in regards to being given clear consent. You know, in the early 2000s, the ADF conducted anti-malarial trials for these quinoline-based drugs, and some participants in these trials testify that they were pressured into taking part in the drug trials. And this isn't one or two people that we're talking about. This is entire groups of people who are saying the same story, who are saying, no, this is what happened. This is how this all went down. It's not like what they're saying. So this isn't one or two people. These are entire sections of people, maybe more. They were pressured into taking part in these drug trials, and they were being told that, one, they would not deploy if they didn't consent to being a human guinea pig, and some even suggest that they were mass volunteered by someone of a higher rank. Now, this doesn't pass the informed consent sniff test to me. Even the hint of a lack of consent should be enough to put a stop to this being made a risk in the future, as far as I am concerned. I will get to chat soon. I see you guys have got opinions on this, and I'm really glad. My number two concern is implied duress. Now, the ADF has, of course, a chain of command. We wouldn't want it to not have one. And it's well known that shit rolls downhill, okay? It doesn't roll uphill. So the opportunity to disagree or question something is not always accessible to our service members. So we can presume if some research was being conducted and they had been unfortunate enough to be chosen to become a test subject, a degree of coercion might be placed on that individual, even if nothing is said. This implied duress doesn't stop at the consent phase of the research. What about reporting negative side effects? Could an ADF employee report negative side effects, physical or psychological, without any risk to their career plans? The answer is no. If you become reduced in capability from a drug trial or research project and report it, you will likely be giving a death sentence to your career. That's an implied duress. So I think we can safely assume that some side effects are going to be not reported. Quite wisely too, from the person's perspective, if the participant at all values their role in the ADF. This, in my opinion, makes ADF personnel useless test subjects because they are under this invisible duress to both comply with any study they might come across and don't have the accessibility or ability to report negative side effects without risking their role in the ADF. Who wants to risk their job? No one really, if they love their job. So they're not going to. They're going to hide it, which leads me to my next concern, which is skewed data. Now, having that implied duress we just spoke about would presumably have an effect on any data that was being collected. If negative side effects aren't being reported, how can the data collected be accurate? It can't be. And the ramifications for this are actually mind-blowing if you think about it, right? Let's say a new drug for some hideous disease that we all want eradicated, right, is tested on our ADF personnel. And we can safely presume that a percentage, even a small percentage of those don't want to, quite understandably, report a negative side effect they experienced for fear of losing their job. Those behind the study collect the data, saying it's all good and ready to be released on the general public. But their data isn't correct because, in fact, some of those tested did have problems caused by the drug and were not able to report them at the time without ramifications. So said drug goes out and then folks in the general population start suffering the same negative side effects because of the skewed data. This, in my opinion, makes testing on military personnel not only a useless waste of resources, but a potentially dangerous way and let's be honest about Big Pharma, they are ruthless. They are ruthless, okay, in their money grabbing. So I see this as a potentially dangerous way for ruthless Big Pharma to cut some corners, get their drugs out on the market and make some more billions. If they haven't done it yet, it surely is only a matter of time before someone takes advantage of that skewed data loophole. My number 4 concern is reduced capability. Now, we've got those personnel who were volunteered. They didn't report negative side effects and now at a reduced capability to perform their roles, especially if it's a frontline role. We have weakened our operational capacity of the ADF, remembering its goal that we said before, right? Which isn't to test drugs for Big Pharma, isn't to have our soldiers studied by curious doctors wanting to write books, right? The last thing we should be doing, especially in the climate at the moment, is anything that reduces the psychological or physical health of our servicemen and women. The job will have enough risks without adding to it the risks of human research and drug trials. My number 5 concern is duty of care. Now, the ADF recruiting website says, and this is a quote, the ADF has a duty of care to provide a safe working environment. Couldn't it be argued that by subjecting your employees to drug trials and human research, that it's risking or even breaching that duty of care? It's putting them at unnecessary risk in a job or a role that already has an increased risk of psychological and physical traumas. So I'm not sure they're meeting that duty of care, to be honest with you. We trust the ADF with a lot, not only the defence of our nation, the protection of innocents when abroad, but also we trust them with our sons and our daughters, our mothers, our fathers, our cousins, and our neighbours' health and well-being. And we all know it's already a taxing job. Should the ADF be increasing the risk of harm to its employees? In my opinion, no. No, they should not be. Number 6 is the role of our military. G'day, JP. We're just talking about you. I personally don't want the role of our military to be to aid Big Pharma or curious doctors wanting to write scandalous books to increase their own fame in their chosen field. I don't want that to be the role of our military. That to me there are other options. Use prisoners, pay university students, pay low-income people. You will find folk who will be part of these drug trials. Even just for the greater good, you will find folk who will be a part of these drug trials. But do not be risking the role of our military. Number 7, trust and ethics. Now, we spoke a little bit about what we trust the ADF with. And at the moment, trust between the general public, veteran community, and those serving in the ADF is at an all-time low with the leaders of the ADF. Yet we are supposed to trust them with not only the welfare and duty of care of our loved ones, but also the serious business of using research to develop an understanding of something that they want to study and use our military personnel as test subjects. The ethical guidelines put in place for human research are supposed to give us peace of mind on these matters. Yet, let's talk, for example, Dr. Samantha Kromfetz and her SAS Culture Review, which was commissioned by Campbell under the guise of human research. This human research didn't have ethics approval before it began. It was given later retrospective approval. Well, gosh, how does that stack up? What would have been done if it wasn't found to be ethical? Oh, too late, damage done. I think I'm surely not alone in presuming that ethical approval and things like that for any sort of trial or research must be conducted, must be finished, signed, sealed, delivered before any human research is conducted. Surely. Because what if it goes wrong? Campbell was willing to take that risk. I can't believe he was willing to risk our most elite soldiers with human research that had not even been ethically approved. I have to believe it because it's actually fact. Is that a risk worth taking? Nope. Is it okay for curious medical cats like this to just go ahead with their research before it's deemed ethical? Can you even believe that? And that's, of course, what led to that big scandal and the Brereton report, and that now there's a very scandalous book coming out that I'm sure Dr. Samantha's going to do very well out of. Surely that would make any research null and void, in my opinion. Bear in mind that you and we couldn't just build a cubby house for our kids, right, without prior approval from our local council. But this doctor was able to conduct human research without her plans being approved. If you did build that cubby for your little darlings and the council rocked up, right, chances are they aren't going to give you retrospective approval. They will make you rip the project down. What has a higher risk of potential harm? Human research on many already stressed and overworked elite soldiers, or a flippin' cubby house? If trust wasn't gone before this human research, it's practically non-existent now at all. Another good reason to just immediately halt all human research in our ADF until trust is regained in its leadership, if we should ever do it again. I could just go on and on about this subject because it is something very close to my heart, and I've worked very closely with a lot of veterans, and I hear stories daily of how they were used as human guinea pigs, and whether it had a negative side effect on them or it didn't. The fact is, I have enough misgivings about the subject as a whole that this is just silliness. There is no way you could actually get accurate data out of any of this research. So be very wary of anything that has been tested or any human research that comes out of the ADF Please, especially considering they're allowed to go ahead. Remember, your loved ones are being risked with human research that isn't even ethically approved. And from that human research, what have we seen happen? How many folks have felt suicidal since the Brereton report? So I said the S word. Sorry, YouTube. It's inevitable when we're talking about serious subjects. I could go on and on about this subject, and I'll get some former test subjects on here to have a chinwag with us, because it's not just Australia. Canada has suffered as well, the UK, Ireland, Scotland, a lot of places have suffered, and I've spoken to a lot of veterans. The US, spoken to a lot of veterans from all these different nations who were used as human guinea pigs. But when it comes to our ADF, which we so proudly like to say, our ADF, you better start listening to us, especially about this sort of stuff. I wanted to start a conversation about us using military personnel as experimental test subjects. And I just wanted to get what you guys were, what your thoughts are about it. You know, would you be okay with taking a drug that was tested on subjects who couldn't report negative side effects? I wouldn't be. Even if it's fine, that's surely just got to skew the data. You know, are you okay with our soldiers being observed and having their data taken from them without ethics approval beforehand, only for them to be embroiled in scandal and have a sensational book written about the findings of said human research? I'm not okay with it. Let them do their damn job. Stop being so flippant with their lives and their health, please. Let them do their job. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too much of a rant, but it is something that I'm absolutely horrified by. Stephen Webb, I'm just fine with that. You know, give the prisoners extra money on their commissary or something if they go ahead with it. That's just fine. What are you guys thinking about it? Yeah, exactly, Daz. On the same prisoners, you know, they'd probably do a lot for a packet of smokes or something, you know. Yep, Michael Stott, I agree with you. Yep, exactly. Exactly right. And I think for those very reasons is why it just can't be done. It's not a suitable platform for experimentation. It's not. The implied duress, the consent factor. Yeah. If you want to talk about toxic culture in the ADF, let's have a look right at the top. Let's see what they think about consent, shall we? Hey, dog, I have this strange... It's a Kaz. Yeah, exactly, Michael Stott. They weren't compensated. No one was compensated. And in fact, JP, I know for a fact, was never even given that form. He was just told, and the form he was given for the experimental drugs, he had 2 experimental drugs tested on him, right? And the form he was given was actually one that only had side effects that had been on, what were they, dogs or something, John Paul? You'd know, were they, I think he even knew the name of the sort of dogs that they'd tested on, but there was no information there at all. And also, folks, if you were part of these drug trials, it will not be included in your normal medical docs. You will have to contact and ask specifically. I'll find out who you meant to contact, and it might even be the Australian Malaria Institute that is at the ADF. And you actually have to ask for your drug trial documents. So it's like it's not even included in your medical documents, which to me is a little bit dodgy. It is concerning. Exactly, Kaz. What if this happened to civilians in just a workplace? That wouldn't be okay. And especially if they could lose their job or their role if they reported a negative side effect, or especially if they had someone there who they didn't even know why this is just a HR person watching them, but actually that HR person is studying their culture and hasn't even been given ethical approval beforehand. Oh, we'll get it later. Don't worry, we'll get it later. Is that what Campbell said? How did Campbell commission something and say, it's okay, I'm going to put these chaps at risk, our best at risk, because it's worth it? No, it wasn't. It wasn't worth it. And it was unethical. Yep, exactly, Michael Stott. And that is that implied duress. Now, I don't know if there's actually a term for it. I've researched, and I've been researching this pretty heavily with the help of Disco Stew and other folk for it be since at least, 2016, 2015. So, I mean, it's not like I've just woke up and thought about this. This is something that has been brewing in here. Yeah, I'm so not okay with it either, Keely. And maybe next week we'll talk about maybe what we can do maybe we can start a letter writing campaign to someone and say, look, we want an end to testing on our ADF, please. Let them do their damn job. And stop. Imagine throwing them under the bus for being research projects. That's what they've done. We have, I don't know about you guys. I have, Michael Stott, the Australian Malaria Institute makes, what are those things? The creepypastas that are my kids would know what they're called. And they all have numbers. And they're weird, like experiments and that. But it's, the Australian malaria, it's horror. It's real life horror that we're talking about. Because even with the data collection, the actual consent that was given, John Paul was never checked up on. Never once. He was part of this trial, but never once checked up on. I mean, like I said, it cured his malaria, which we was very grateful for. But that is a risk. They were sloppy. They were so sloppy. And I think it's time we stopped listening to the top brass, who we know we can't trust now, saying, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. You don't need to listen to them. What are they? What? Don't listen to them. No, it's time we started listening to them down the bottom who actually were tested on. That's SPC monsters. That's exactly right. The Australian Malaria Institute is an SPC monster of its own. It is. It's frightening. Yeah, exactly. There was some talk about that, Lambo, actually, the fact that there are currently now ADF personnel who are being tested with drugs for this pandemic who are actually working securing quarantine places. So, I mean, people have to work. It's not like they just get to go to hospital while they're having these tests. These tests were done on folk outfield, and in some cases, they were given it for much longer than the recommended amount that they were meant to be doing it. In fact, I think 2 Commando really suffered because of some drug trials once upon a time. But like I said, we'll get an expert on here. There's a few experts we could probably get on here. Maybe if I'm very, very good, I might be able to ask Dr. Jane to come on and talk to us about it, because she actually is also a widow. And she is a widow. Her husband was also part of some drug trials and he suffered greatly. So much so that he is no longer with us. But she has dedicated her life, and I think she's like a neuroscientist or something, so she would be amazing to have on to talk. But we will definitely talk about this more, because this is a subject, it's just not worth the extra risk. Whether you think it's done any harm or not, it's just not worth the extra risk, I think. Anyway, let's move along. Let's go on to the Captain Cook at the news, and I thought we'd keep it sort of still talking about the ADF. Australia's Foreign Affairs Chief has acknowledged that locals who worked with the Defence Force in Afghanistan are in fact in danger. Well, duh, Fred. Why did it take him so long to figure that out? We do recognise that the Afghans who served with us, some of them are in actual danger. Some of them are in potential danger. Can you stop using your word salads? Please, all these empty frickin' words from politicians drive me crazy. Can we just have some action, please? You are the one who is going to have to go meet your maker one day, and this is blood on your hands. The Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade Secretary Francis Adamson said on Wednesday, "We take that responsibility very seriously." Independent Senator and Veterans Advocate Jackie Lambie says that it is absolutely shameful to leave the interpreters in the lurch after the Australian government had 7 years to keep them safe and to get the job done. And she said that the world is watching how we treat our mates. And I think she is exactly right. We take mateship very you don't even have to like someone in Australia to be mates with them. We take mateship very, very seriously. So the Australian government is now fast-tracking visas for former interpreters. About time. Sorry if I sound so cynical today. I'm feeling a little bit like that. Yeah. Okay, my 3 picks for my historical dinner party tonight are William Longstaff, amazing soldier and war artist. You've got to check out the painting, The Men and Gates. I think it's at the War Memorial. Massive painting. We have a copy of it here at home. And he was an amazing chap. Like he loved war. Like he was a man, like not like a warmonger, but he was built for it. And there was also another Longstaff who was a great war artist. But Will Longstaff was also a really, really great painter. And you can see that with the ghosts at the Men and Gates. It's very eerie painting. My second one is someone called James Scott. We like to call him Jimmy. He's one of the most influential war artists in my personal life, for reasons that some of you will already know, but most of you won't. You must check out the tragic and amazing story of the life of James Fraser Scott. Okay, he was a war artist that you may not have heard about, but his legend lives on and still inspires the veteran community to this day. The next one is Louis McCubbin. They are all amazing Australian or New Zealand, in the case of James Fraser Scott, war artists. So definitely look into that. Yeah, I agree with you, Kaz. I've thought about it and I think it's worth the risk. I say bring them home, and that is here. I think we have a duty of care to them too. Anyway, guys, before I keep going, I'm going to get out of here. As always, it has been absolutely wonderful to share a smoko with you all. You're such fine company and such fine people. Please leave a thumbs up below the screen. Subscribe if you haven't already so I can get off my L plates, please. Don't forget to ding my little bell for notifications of all my future uploads, because you never know when I might be surprising you with another nighttime stream or another little video of some gameplay that my daughter and I do. It's very bad gameplay. Don't expect good gameplay here. Please consider telling someone about this community so that we can keep growing our family and so that I can again get off my L plates. Thank you so much for watching. Say good day in the comments below. Suggest a future subject. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend and that you can join me at 9:30 next Monday morning. Love and kisses to you all. Be good, be safe, say no to drug trials. Have a good day. Bye.